Hi, everyone. I'm Thérèse, and this is New York Girl Again, The After, the podcast for caregivers who have survived the hardest chapter of their lives and are now gathering both the courage and the strength to write the next one. This week, we're closing our Women in Caregiving series in honor of International Women's Month. Over the past few weeks, we've talked about the incredible strength of women caregivers, the sacrifices we make, and why so many of us quietly put ourselves last. And this week, we're going to talk about what comes next. What happens when the caregiving journey ends and you find yourself in the after? When our loved one passes and our caregiving journey comes to an end, there is a moment, or really a stretch of time, where it feels like you are in limbo. The world around you keeps moving. People go back to their routines. Conversations shift. Life continues. But something in your life has completely stopped. And the world doesn't pause with you. There's no transition, no roadmap. No one sits you down and says, "This is what happens now." Instead, there is this quiet, not a peaceful quiet, an almost eerie silence. The constant demands are gone, the urgency is gone, but so is the structure that held your days together. And many women find themselves in a space that feels disorienting, confusing, and hard to even put into words. Not because you don't have a life, but because you haven't been living your own life for a very long time. There's something I want to say here, because this is where a lot of women quietly struggle. I know that I did for a long time. It can feel like you lost yourself. Like somewhere along the way, between the appointments and medications, responsibilities, and the constant vigilance, you disappeared. But that's not actually what happened. You didn't lose yourself. You didn't disappear. You put yourself on hold. You set yourself aside. There's a difference, because loss feels like something is gone and you can't get it back. But being set aside means it's still there, still reachable, like uncovering something that's been stored away for years, not gone, just hidden under layers of time and responsibility. And what's important to understand is that this isn't just something you felt. There's research that describes this, that over time, caregivers step out of their own roles and routines, and their sense of self begins to narrow as everything centers around the person they're caring for. So that feeling of not quite recognizing yourself, of not knowing where you went in all of it, it makes sense. Because for a long time, years, maybe even decades, your life wasn't organized around you. It was organized around someone else's needs. And you showed up for that fully. So then the question becomes, if you didn't lose yourself, why does it feel so hard to come back? Because this isn't just about time passing. Something actually changed in how you were living day to day. For a long time, your attention was trained outward. You were watching for what was needed, what could go wrong, what had to be handled next. Your mind was always a few steps ahead, always scanning, always preparing, And over time, that becomes your normal. So when caregiving ends, you're left with space. And that space is vast, even uncomfortable, because you haven't been living in that kind of space for a long time. There's no immediate demand pulling your attention, no structure telling you where to be or what to do next. And for a while, that can feel disorienting because your life had a rhythm to it, a demanding, constant, never really stopping rhythm. But it was full. It was structured. It was purposeful, even when it was completely exhausting. And now, you're left trying to figure out how to relate to your own time again, what to do with it, how to fill it, how to actually live inside it. And that doesn't come back right away. It takes time to shift from living in constant response to living by your own direction again. It takes time to understand where you are now, where you want to go, what you want to do, and who you want to become from here. And this is the part that can feel frustrating because there's no clear moment where everything clicks back into place. There's no day where you wake up and suddenly feel like yourself again. It begins much more quietly than that. And it could take time, a long time. For me, it took almost 2 years after the last leg of my caregiving journey ended to really begin focusing on what was next, to allow myself to open up to the fact that anything could be possible if I would stop keeping myself shut down. That's something I don't think we talk about enough, how long it can actually take to come back to yourself. Because this isn't a quick reset. It's a process. It starts in small shifts, small decisions. You start noticing yourself again, your body, your energy, what feels good and what doesn't. You give yourself permission to rest, permission to heal, and to begin adjusting to a life that no longer includes caregiving. That's a shift in itself. Because now your attention can slowly start to turn back toward you. You try something, maybe something you used to enjoy, or something you never had time or space to explore before. And sometimes you find yourself sitting with a question you haven't asked in a very, very long time. What do I want? And even that can feel unfamiliar at first. Because for so long, that question wasn't part of how you were living at all. There's actually been research on this, that after long periods of caregiving or even chronic stress, it can take time for the brain and nervous system to adjust to a different pace of life. So that feeling of slowness, of not immediately knowing what's next, it's part of the process of recalibrating. This isn't about rushing into a new version of your life. It's not about having a plan right away. It's about allowing yourself to reconnect gradually, letting things come back into focus, one small piece at a time, and trusting that even if it feels slow, something is shifting. You know, we talk a lot about the tremendous strength it takes to be a caregiver. And it's real. The endurance, the responsibility, the ability to keep going day after day, even when you're exhausted, frightened, and carrying more than you ever thought you could. But there's another strength that caregivers take on. And that's the strength it takes to begin again. Because when caregiving ends, no one is asking anything of you in the same way. No one depending on you to show up at a certain time. No one structuring your day. No one needing you in that constant, immediate way. And that can feel like a loss of purpose, even though you gave everything. So now, the strength shifts. It's not about responding anymore. It's about choosing. Choosing how you spend your time. Choosing what you focus on. Choosing what matters to you now. And that could be harder than it sounds. Because for so long, your life was shaped by what was needed. Now it's shaped by what you decide. And that takes effort. A different kind of effort. One that isn't always visible to other people, but is just as real. Caregiving may have been one of the most defining chapters of your life, especially for us women. It changes how you see people. The empathy it deepens. The way you understand responsibility, what it means to be the lifeline for another human being, and what you now know you're capable of. It leaves an imprint, not just emotionally, but in how you move through the world. And that doesn't go away. But what can get lost is the sense that there is still more ahead. Because when something that significant ends, it can feel like everything meaningful happened in that chapter. Like everything else might feel smaller in comparison. Like maybe you already fulfilled what you were meant to do. But that's not true. It's just different. Because the part of you that showed up during caregiving, the part that learned how to live with uncertainty, how to keep going when things were really, really hard, how to carry more than you ever thought you could, that part of you is still here. Now, it just gets applied in a different direction. Toward your own life, your health, your experiences, your future, your passions. And that doesn't erase what you've been through. It builds from it. Caregiving asked everything of you, and you gave it in ways that most people will never fully understand. The after is where you begin to make space for yourself again. And if you're in that space right now, trying to figure out what comes next or how to even begin, just know you don't have to do that alone. You can join our growing community at New York Girl Again for support and resources. And if it would help to talk through your journey in the after with someone who has walked this path and continues to, I offer one-on-one support sessions, and you can find more information on my website. I'm Thérèse, and this is New York Girl Again, the after. And wherever you are in your journey, I'm really glad you're here.